June 27th, the MiG-29 of the 40th Tactical Air Brigade suddenly began to shake violently. The control panel flared to life, flooding with voltage warnings. The calm sky turned in an instant into a battlefield of life and death. Inside the cockpit, the radar screamed like a death knell. An S-300 system, 95 kilometers away, had locked onto the jet. The pilot gripped the control stick tightly. Ahead of him, a colossal air defense network unfolded, and every passing second drew the line thinner between life and death. To survive, he dropped to 150 meters, hugging the terrain to escape the radar's sweep. Beneath him, 4 GBU-39s came alive. GPS lock, inertial calibration, link with the upgraded guidance suite. The standard window was 30 seconds, 2 full minutes dragged by, each second stretching into eternity. Finally, at 14:48, all 4 indicators turned green. 4 steel arrows stood ready for a suicidal mission, where even the smallest mistake meant certain death. On the iPad, the coordinates appeared clearly. A factory producing 40 Shahed 136 drones each week, hidden 350 kilometers deep inside occupied territory. Intelligence warned of an electronic warfare station, Kushuka 4, emitting 500 watts to jam GPS and shield the entire area. Fuel range, 200 kilometers. But once the bombs were released, he would have just 18 minutes inside enemy airspace before being forced to retreat. The war was no longer just fought in the skies. It had become a race against time, against fuel, and against death itself. Pressure spiked as the S-300 radar ramped up its scan rate. From the southeast, an SA-15 system also began sweeping, like 2 iron eyes probing for prey. Only 6 minutes remained. He had to climb to 4,500 Naltsathurs to release the bomb, exposing himself completely to an eager web of air defenses. The GBU-39 can glide 110 km, but ahead lay an electronic jamming wall strong enough to fry any civilian equipment. All technical parameters, every decision, and his very life now depended on maneuvers executed with absolute precision. Suddenly, the voltage spiked 31 V in 3 seconds before the voltage regulator could react. A modified pylon was pulling 32A through a circuit rated for just 20A. Amid a tangle of jury-rigged wiring, a Ukrainian field engineer faced Soviet electrical standards, forcing American weapon systems to run on a Soviet airframe. Every stray spark could be the end, yet he kept a steady grip on the controls, driving straight into the heart of the kill zone. There was no time left. He shoved the throttle to the stops. The twin RD-33 engines roared, each producing 18,300 lb of thrust, hurling the MiG into the contested zone at 1451. All sensors screamed, and S-400 and Metatopol had locked and was scanning. Mobile SA-15 units closed in from every direction, and Kushuka GPS jamming was ripping across the guidance band. Ahead lay a sky so thick with death it felt like a sea. One tiny mistake here would mean only one outcome: being torn apart. next 19 minutes, he would learn whether the 4 bombs strapped beneath the MiG's wings, secured with scrap tank parts, could pierce the most sophisticated air defense network outside Moscow. At exactly 15:15, he banked the jet and slipped through an 8-kilometer wide gap between 2 S-300 coverage zones. That corridor, mapped and cleared by intelligence, was the only path forward, a fragile thread of survival stretched tight between life and death, trembling right before his nose. Slipping through the mountain pass, he hugged the terrain to stay hidden beneath the radar horizon. A deviation of mere seconds would throw him straight into the SA-15 kill zone. This gap exists because of simple physics. At long range, the S-400 cannot see below 2 at 40 meters, while the S-300 is positioned to engage high-altitude targets. It's a fragile balance, a thin safety line that only the most daring pilots would risk their lives on. But to survive, he had to fly with absolute precision. Drift 2 kilometers left and the S-300 would lock on, drift 3 kilometers right and he'd die under SA-15 fire. The warning radar signaled a new threat. A mobile SA-15 had stopped, activating its 9S-36 radar, suspecting someone was exploiting this deadly gap. They were lying in wait for prey, and he was playing a game of life and death in the sky. To avoid detection, he dropped to just 120 nanoseconds, hugging the dry riverbed so close the fuselage nearly scraped power lines that didn't even show up on reconnaissance images. At 15:22, he yanked the jet up, pulled 4G, and climbed to 15,000 FT to release the bombs. Immediately, an S-400 radar locked on and cooked the MiG's nose with a 350W burst of electromagnetic energy. Each shudder through their controls felt like a cold warning. Any mistake now would be irreversible.